Game face.
Right, way to mess it up. Welcome back to the Beyond the Dojo podcast. I'm Lauren.
I'm Jeremiah.
And if you're watching the YouTube version of this, you can see that we're not alone. There are strangers in our midst, but not actually so strange. So we are doing another women's episode of the podcast. This is like episode 32, I think. And Jeremiah. Women and Jeremiah. Or as we just said, Jeremiah looked like Jesus because he had a halo of light around his head. So if you go back to episode 27, that was our first women's podcast where we talked about all things being a female karateka, and we briefly touched on a couple of touchy subjects that we're going to dive into more explicitly today. So we might rant and rave the whole time, we might not. I don't really care. I don't really know. You're welcome to hang around and listen, or if you don't like it, you can shut it off and, go about your merry way.
She's misleading you. It's going to be a bowl of rainbows. This is positivity.
All we're going to say is positive things about everything. I think we spend more time ranting on this podcast than anything else.
This is our...
Sorry, we've dragged three of you into this. Okay, so we have...
Welcome to our organized, unorganized.
Welcome to our unorganized life. So we have Laura Lorenz, I got it right this time, I think, from Berkeley, California, and Amy Sperling from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Riva Tarn, cut it off at the Tarn, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And
Laura, go Steelers!
In the middle of Florida.
We are from the sticks in the middle of Florida. We are from the South, like the real South, because we're more South than the South.
Yeah, we don't have culture, because we don't have enough people to have
We don't have culture. All right, so we're going to kind of jump right into it since we did a big intro last time about our backgrounds and whatever. So anybody who's listening, if you want to find out more about like where we came from, where we came from in karate and what our background is, go ahead and listen to that episode, because this episode is going to be a lot more about, the difficult stuff. So Jeremiah, take it away.
All right. Just to get started, let's go ahead and go straight to what are some of the most common examples of sexism or prejudice you've experienced throughout your karate life. Riva, want to go first?
Great.
I'm the person that looks away.
See, in the beginning, it was kind of hard to say, because in the beginning, I don't think I recognized it as that, because I think they took pride, in getting rid of people. It was the old school mentality, you can't handle what we have to offer. I mean, literally having buckets at the corner of the dojo deck to throw up. That's how tough the classes were. So I'm not sure that was sexism per se. There'd be things like, I don't want to hit a girl, things like that. Or if I would accidentally, in the beginning, actually hit someone, the ego would get in the way. Because, oh my God, a girl hit me. So things of that nature.
Interject a little story. I lived up in upstate New York, and this girl came down from Quebec to train with the teacher I was training with, and we were free sparring. And it's the first time I ever free sparred a woman. She's 19, 20 years old. I was 13, 14 at the time. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And my sensei looked at me weird. And the woman looked at me, and she kind of gave me this eye. And she decks me dead in the face. Wow, bam! It hits me. I'm like, whoa! And I looked at her, and I was like, oh, it's on, lady. I don't care what you are. and we had one of the best training sessions I ever had in my career up to that point, because it like just clicked in. I was like, I don't care. This lady don't care. I don't care. And I know it sounds like we might have went to the far extreme of like treating each other the same, but I think some dudes never experienced that and couldn't get over that whole like, oh my God, it's a female,
Yeah.
And I think some guys like me that literally had to get punched in the face to realize they're serious, just as serious as I am about karate, and I better get my crap together.
Riva, have you ever punched any of them in the face for that stuff?
Well, everybody's taller than me, so lower, above the belt. But yeah, I can usually either the solar plexus or stomach area.
Okay.
Amy, what about you? Because you look like you're just biting your tongue. I'll tell you about some things.
Well, I have to admit I have totally punched people in the face after I said, please don't hit my teeth. Yeah. Then I'm like, okay. Then they do it one more time, and then I give it right back to them. I'm like, oh, that was not a mistake. Sorry. If you do it again, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think that, I came through a dojo with Robert Fusaro, And once he was on the floor, there was no sexism, So my sensei, I was very thankful that my sensei was awesome. Now, some of the students, though, were different, right? And I would have to say, when I was going through the ranks, I was really thin and tiny. And I'd have to say the men mocked me quite a bit, like especially sparring. They would kind of actually laugh at you, Mm. So that was not cool. And I think people forget about the art. Again, the art part is, you get a 6'2", 200-pound guy wailing on you, and you're like, next life, I'm going to come back 7 feet tall, 100 pounds, because that's the ratio, right? It's 2 to 1. And I just don't think they get it. I don't even think that's part of a sexism. I think they just don't know that when they block, they should just stop at the surface. And that's, it's easy to go wham, but what are you learning? So,
Right.
But I have to say I was pretty lucky from my sensei for sure.
Kind of bullheadedness there, rather than actually being prejudiced, maybe a little bit bullheaded and not thinking about what they're doing with their blocks and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Laura?
Sorry.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences on that range of like training with guys who don't have very good control and are focusing a lot on like strength, just probably like ego oriented, or people that don't have high expectations for you, so they go extremely easy. I've had both experiences, and neither are productive for me anyway. And I've seen it done even to other females that are even smaller than me. And they just there's no growth because they're not meeting together for a productive training experience. But a couple other things like that I've seen that have had an impact on my own experiences, like not in seminars or in classes, not using a female uke to demonstrate techniques with. So, maybe it's not on purpose. It's not supposed to communicate a message, but the impression is like females are not as good, so they can't demonstrate. And then like not having female instructors. When you have female instructors, it completely changes the dynamic of that. So if you're only bringing in male instructors when there's a plethora of female instructors to bring in, it sends a certain message that's discouraging. And I think the overall message in my career has just been that the expectation is females are not strong. We don't start strong and we don't get strong. So therefore you're not going to be strong. And it's taken a lot to overcome that mentality, even for myself, but also trying to get other females to accept that they can develop their own strength, but they have to believe that it's possible first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got this general rule that I tell the kids on the floor. I say, boys, you're always gentlemen. You always let the ladies go first. You treat these girls like ladies. But when they're standing in front of you and they're about to do karate, we're all dudes. We're all dudes. We get treated the same. You're going to go at them the same way. And then I tell the ladies, don't use your position as a tool to get an advantage for somebody. And it's, people look at me and they're like, why do you have to explain this? But in my mind, it has to be said for everybody to go, okay, level playing ground. This is what it is, and maybe it's too extreme. Yeah. Maybe it's just, I'm that kind of person. I got to talk about everything and have it out in the front. So
no, but I mean, we talked about in the last podcast that sometimes the types of prejudices or sexism that we end up facing, mostly because we're female, partially because we're small, is a lot of it's subtle. It's not necessarily somebody outright saying something. It's subtleties. So to verbalize that and be like, hey, these are some subtle things you need to keep in mind. This is a social experiment. You guys are in a class, we're all combined together. You have to be conscious of how you're reacting with other students. I think it's important to point that out. I'll say in my perspective, I mentioned last time that we spoke that like in my dojos that I've come up in, I don't feel necessarily that I've experienced quite as many, passive aggressive or aggressive sexist things as others. But there are things like, talking about subtleties. at seminars, whenever you go to meet somebody or go to work with someone, and they automatically assume, they look at you and you're like, well, you're small, you're female, you look kind of young, your rank is probably down here somewhere. I'm going to kind of exert my dominance, or I'm going to basically guide the entire training process because you probably don't know more than I do. I don't know that they necessarily think those things consciously, but that's always how it comes across with those particular people. Also mentioned in the last podcast that sometimes women do that. But, that's one thing. Another, subtlety is like, Laura, you're talking about being confident essentially in strength, but also as an instructor, when a woman gets a chance to teach, I know from my own experience that I guess I'm so used to like, I don't know, I'm so used to guys teaching and like guys respecting other guys as teachers. I'm not really sure how I'm being taken when I teach. So when we have lots of older black belts who have been training longer than I've been alive come in and train with us, and I'm trying to teach, sometimes I'm a little passive and I don't want to like call them out directly because I'm not as confident about it, and I should be more so, I guess. But that's something that I struggle with. But on the flip side, sometimes they ignore me altogether. So whether that's actually a prejudice or if it's because they're bullheaded and they won't listen to anyone, I'm not really sure.
I had the very fortunate thing growing up in karate. The dojo in Japan that I got my shodan at was responsible for producing very high-level female kata champions. Yoko Hazama in '87 won the worlds, so in JK. So, and then my very first karate teacher was a successful American competition kata lady. So for me, the very first two instructors I ever had were females that were very good at what they did. Like very good. And it was like undeniable to see that. So when a male instructor came to me, I just looked at it and said, different. It was just like they had different aspects of karate that were cool, but they couldn't imitate each other,
Yeah.
And I sound stereotypical, but I love the precision of a well-timed, just crisp punch. And men can't do that.
Yes, they can.
But they don't want to. I'm teasing.
Yeah, kind of.
Some of the limitations and challenges that people who are overly muscled face to learning the snappier, crisper, more precise movements that are evident in the art that we practice. And it's difficult to change just as it's difficult for some women to gain the strength necessary to provide some force behind the technique. I think men also have a challenge as well, and there's social pressure to like make yourself less strong for a period of time. So definitely.
Yeah, I've been trying to stop muscling my technique for years, because it's our tendency, right? I've done physical labor all my life, so it's easy for me just to lift my shoulder and kind of jerk things around. So that's, I guess, keeps me training though. Is I want to be efficient. I want to be completely efficient in what I do. You look at ballerinas, you look at gymnasts that are on the top level. They're so efficient about what they do. It's beautiful.
Any athlete.
It's just a beautiful human movement, right? And I feel like karate got to a point where it was like, oh, it got really beautiful. And then all of a sudden its focus changed somewhere else. The karate community focus changed onto, pausing or even, making shapes instead of moving.
That's tournament style.
Yeah, you believe in even the traditional karate stuff, though. Majority of your traditional karate is focused on the stopping point, not
not my experience. Maybe Shitaru was like that, but not in my experience. No.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. Kind of backtracking a little bit. Laura was just talking about like social pressure, and that's kind of the next question. Is like how did the dojo culture play into any kind of sexism that you faced in the past? I kind of want to address that for a second for mine. So you said that and I was like, oh my gosh, guys obviously want to be macho around other dudes, and they don't want to, they don't want to train soft. They want to be, encouraging to each other and train hard and intensely and all kinds of stuff, which women want to do it sometimes too.
Don't be bros.
They want to be bros and, train hard and, hit each other on the butt and whatever kind of guy stuff guys do.
Guys do
my friends in high school did that.
You got some questionable friends, dude.
But maybe that is part of it. That maybe like not being as submissive to a female in authority. Maybe that's kind of a social pressure. Maybe they're unsure about how they're going to be taken by other people. I never really thought about that way before, but that just kind of played in my mind for a second there, because in our dojo, talking about from the perspective of the guys that are coming here to train, it's not really the cultural norm to not listen to what I'm saying when I'm teaching. But they did come up in dojos where they primarily trained really, really hard and primarily listened to guys. So maybe the prejudice is not so much a sexism thing. In my case, maybe it's more like they're just so used to training one way that they're prejudiced against anything that's different.
Good point. It's a training methodology.
They're prejudiced against my training methodology.
Yes.
Yeah. Riva, do you feel like any of the prejudices or sexism or anything like that was egged on by dojo culture?
I really can't speak to that because I grew up in that until I had my own dojo. So I honestly don't know. I mean, there's things I felt or suspected, but in terms of saying I don't know, just because of the culture I grew up in. There's things that a guy could say and it'd be okay, and I would say wouldn't. From something as mundane. I remember, I don't know if it's relatable or not, like one of the instructor's fiance joined the dojo and she asked me about etiquette. So I went over the etiquette, lining up by rank, blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, and I was like I don't even think I was a green belt. All of a sudden, I was told the next day that I shouldn't go around, I forgot the exact words, what it was, but it came across like I was trying to put my rank, and I'm thinking, I'm not even a green belt. What rank are they talking about? And when a guy was asked, it was okay. So I don't know. She didn't last more than, I don't even think she lasted more than 2 weeks or anything.
Did they break up? Is that what it was?
It was.
No, they're married and had kids, etc. No.
So Riva, you said you really didn't notice anything until you started teaching your own dojo. What was the things when you started teaching that you?
I don't know. Well, see, I don't want to say too much in public. That's part of the issue here.
Yeah.
I really don't want to say, because at the public forum, there's an issue for me to say what I really want to say.
Jenny, whatever.
But when you're the highest rank and your sensei gives you directions and it's taken differently if a man would say something, I suspect that because they should have known that if I'm not in any kind of, I don't want to say trouble or something, they should have gotten the hint that I'm doing or saying what I've been asked to do and say.
So the problem was that men were having a hard time accepting your authority?
Not just men, the women too.
Oh.
And I took it because I should have just stopped it and let someone else have that responsibility, but I didn't. So, yeah. When we're not recording, I can say more.
Right.
And anyone who's watching, depending who you are, I might not tell you. So,
Yeah, I get that. And Amy, I know you've been, with your history in karate, the success you had in competition, the success you had in all the different judging credentials and everything else, the teaching credentials. When it came to starting your dojo and kind of getting your feet wet for the first time, did you see anything immediately happen? Did you see that glass ceiling, just all of a sudden appear, or was it something just kind of more like Riva was saying, just kind of everyday, kind of just subtle, I guess?
Well, with my own dojo, not too much problem, except when people would come in that, long time ago, they used to outrank me, but they stopped training for like 20 years. So they stopped time for themselves. So they thought that, okay, I'm way better than you are. But in reality, you kind of stopped 20 years ago. And I can tell technique is not so good. So I have had to have a couple times where, and it sounds like I'm a really crabby lady, but I have had men because it's mostly men,
No.
talk over me when I'm teaching.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and they actually pull people aside and fix them, and they're actually fixing them in the improper way.
Right.
So I literally have had to stop class and say, gee, as far as I know, there's one sensei, and this is my dojo. And if you want to open up your own dojo, that's fine, but this is my dojo, and I don't appreciate that. So if you want to give a private lesson some other time on your own turf, that's fine, but this is mine.
Right.
So I've had to say it. Sounds like I'm a, B word, but
No.
and would I be a B word unless I was a female? I wouldn't.
Right. That's what I was about to say. I was like, I hate that whole idea because, men, anybody take the authority of a woman and they go, oh, she's just being a B, or she's just this or that. And it just, it irritates me. It really does, because how do you expect women to be empowered when you kind of give them a negative attitude every time they're being empowered and doing something right, Anyways.
I've got a question for the two, because you both own your two separate dojos, right?
Well, I did. Yeah. I shut mine down at the beginning of this year.
Well, I don't know if it's because it has to do with being female, but maybe it's happened at least 3 or 4 times. I'm trying to think since I've opened my own place, where a man with experience, I could help you teach, could not even be in the same style, never even met you. Have you had that experience?
He has.
I have.
Oh, then it's not
that. This
then
guy
it's not male female. Okay, good to know. That's really good.
Guy came in and told me he could teach my kids class for me.
That's happened like twice.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, you gonna take my bread and butter away from me? Are you out your damn mind? I mean, I've had to run people off. I literally had to run people off and be like, don't come in my door, don't come here, start your own place.
Well, what I would say was being a white belt class, start as a white belt unless you have a certificate to show me whatever rank they happen to be. 6 months, learn our ways. They usually don't bother. So, well, it's good to know it's not a female-male thing. Good.
Maybe in that particular case, but I've never experienced that. Granted, there's not a ton of foot traffic coming through here necessarily. He was in a more populated city, so that could be part of it too. If I had been in his place, we have like 3 lights in the whole.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Okay.
No, this is actually decent size, but yeah. I think sometimes people misjudge my kindness for weakness.
Laura, what about you with the dojo culture thing? Do you feel like that has played a big role in the stuff that you've experienced?
Well, I feel like there's been remnants of the old boys club from time to time, even though like in most of the dojos that I participated in, like the students have been 50% of the students have been female. So
there's been a big shift in that too, though. That's cool.
So I think for all instructors, if you have much more diversity, it really requires you to have a different approach. Otherwise, you just won't have the student base. And for most people who have either the dojo is their livelihood or they just don't want to have to pay out of pocket to teach their own classes, like you do have to sort of cater to your student base. But that old boys club culture of like, knuckle push-ups on the asphalt sort of thing, and just not taking the time to get to know your body and anatomy and physiology and just thinking like aggression and physicality, you tend to burn students out, I think, with that perspective anyway. So if you want to keep your students around longer, I think you just need a different approach. And that culture, I think, is shifting, but there's remnants of it. And every now and then I'm just like, can't do that.
Jeremiah said we should offer birthday parties. Change the culture. That's a swing in the opposite direction.
I'm cleaning. Lauren, sorry, dude. I mean, I'm married to Lauren, and you're Laura, and
we're like identical. Can't tell us apart.
I think I said that wrong too, so I don't know what I'm.
Get it right.
Lorenz. Okay, Miss Lorenz said something about how the demographic of karate classes have changed. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid in '87, I had the fortunate year of starting year of '87. In Japan, it's really relatively 50-50, and it's always been that way. But in the States, I mean, I remember going back to upstate New York and it being 2 females on the floor. in the entire dojo,
Mm.
you know, and it's just like I couldn't comprehend it at first, you know.
I'm sure it hasn't always been that way in Japan, but I'm sure for the
Uh,
last 30, 40 years.
87 it was 50-50, and Japanese love taking pictures. So in the office they have these like annual pictures they take at the end of the year, and they just have them on the office walls to show who went through and kind of like claim their, oh, that's my student, you know, that kind of thing. And it's always been generally 50-50 all the way through the 70s. So at least that dojo.
Yeah.
So, but what I was gonna say is, with that shift of demographic, have you seen a change in karate culture in the last 20 years, or the dojo culture itself? Not only your own, but maybe the ones you visited or even talking with friends. You don't have to, you know, it's not a personal experience thing, but more of a general knowledge
Well,
question.
it's been 50-50 for a while now.
Okay.
Being a female owner, you know, it's a female owner. So if you don't want a female instructor,
Yeah.
don't join.
Right.
So I don't have that issue. I don't have that issue anymore. I mean, I've had newbies with a little bit of experience try to, not so much talk over me, but try to, whoever their partner is, give them some, I don't want to say teach, because they really weren't teaching, and I had to put a stop to that. Those kind of people don't last long anyhow. Then they think they know more than you, whether it's because I'm female or not, no clue.
Yeah.
But if they can't accept a female instructor, they don't join the dojo.
Yeah.
Right.
So that issue is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes. Amy, how about you? Have you noticed a shift or a change in the?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, a lot. Certainly when I think I started in 1981, 1982, something like that. And generally the 80s and the 90s, there'd be 18 guys and maybe 1 or 2 women in a class.
Yeah.
So definitely that has changed. And I wanted to say something else. Well, with I think the culture has changed also, because back in the day, remember, if somebody was of higher rank to you, they could talk to you, but you couldn't talk back. That's the way
I remember that.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching all these just terrible karateka correcting me all the time. And now, you know, I think maybe it's just, I don't know when that changed, but I think it changed in my head, where I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I just put a box around me and I said, hey, you don't get to talk to me. You don't get to correct me anymore, because that's my instructor. You are not. And I don't even bring that up to my kids or students. I'm like, if you want to say something to each other, please do, because you're protecting. You're saying, hey, you're over blocking me a little bit, or you know, maybe take it or leave it. I try not to correct people when I'm training them, because I think that's disrespectful. So I always say, do you mind if I say something to you? And if they want to hear it, yes. And if they don't, that's fine. You know, because we all have these voices in our head when we're training. Yeah. So if you've got, you know, the teacher instruction, and then you've got your own crap going on, and then somebody else says something, and then the next partner, it's too much. Right. So, you know, I always want to just say, shut up and train. Just shut up and train. But I think, the dojo culture has changed. Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting, because I think if you look at it, I think I would venture to say that Riva, you and Amy have probably started in the early 80s, if I'm correct. In
Japanese, yes, Japanese Okinawan.
Yeah, and I started in the late 80s myself.
Yeah.
So I remember, like Amy was saying, the 18-2 when I came back to the States. So it's interesting to say that. So I know, Laura, you haven't been training as long. And for your own experience, could you say that you've seen a shift of demographic where it became more 50-50, or?
Well, the first group that I was with was in Indiana. And I think I mentioned on our last episode, that was kind of an insular group. So I think it's difficult to compare that. But I think there were only like between 2 and 4 female students in that class. So hard, but the classes that I've been attending, like in the Bay Area in the last 15 years, like 50% females. So I think I just stepped out of like a very small small town feeling, and then voila, karate utopia.
Yeah.
But there, I do notice a change in attitudes, even if it's not represented in numbers per se. I do see a difference in attitude, also in competency and confidence that female karateka have. I see less and less passivity, less timidity in technique, or just their overall personality. So I see some other more subtle shifts just within that time period in the group that I know.
Nice.
And more competent instructors, like who we have on this call here, amongst others. So that I don't recall seeing before.
All right, that's cool. Gosh, Lord, I just lost my idea.
You looked at me.
Pardon me, I forgot.
I have not been training quite 20 years yet, so most of my experience has been from a minor to now. So I can't really say that I've noticed as much of a change. The only thing that I kind of wish is, our dojo is still young, but if we get adult students, they're usually male, they're not female, but our kids classes are split right down the middle. Yeah. Particularly, actually, our oldest kids class, 9 to 12 years old, actually it's majority female most of the time, which is cool to see because, I actually just re-listened to the previous podcast, and I think, Laura, you had made the comment that a lot of guys are going to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which we don't have that around here. We don't have any other martial arts around here, but around here, a lot of the guys go into football, baseball, soccer, or whatever else, and girls are stuck with dance or karate or cheerleading, I guess.
Well, they got soccer too and track, but
that's at like high school level. Okay. Talking about kids level, they don't really have anything, so it's basically karate or girly stuff. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's a great selling point though, because every time those girls walk in and see Lauren and her black belt and her gi, their eyes light up and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do this." I'm like, I don't even have to say anything. I just sit back, pick my teeth, look like an idiot because girls just love that, and I think that's pretty cool because not only do the girls light up, but generally the mother, you'll see her go, like her eyes light up and like, this is a good thing, and it's cool to be a part of. Yeah.
They just want to know that their daughter can punch some dude in the throat if he tries to cross her. That's all they want.
And you admit that. You admit that confidence.
I admit the throat punching attitude.
Awesome. So the next thing would be, how could a karateka change their everyday practice when they're training with women to kind of navigate that situation? A male
karateka.
Well, if anyone has an attitude, I have a 17-year-old Shodan, and she can kick your butt. So all I got to do, she's going to be listening to this because I told her I'm having this, the second part too. Yeah. The guys are afraid of her. She's only a little bit taller than me. Well, everyone's taller than me. But we've got like a 6'4" teenager. They're all afraid of her in a good way. In a good way. I shouldn't say afraid, nervous, because she doesn't put up. So all I got to do is put her in front of someone. That's it. End of story.
Yeah.
I interrupted your question. Go ahead and ask it again.
No, go ahead. No. I'm afraid I'll mess it up again.
Did I interrupt you?
No,
I did.
No, gosh, no. Oh, listen, Lauren is all professional when she's not with me, but when she's around me, this is what it is. You just have to deal with like our banter.
Keeping you in check?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Being that hovering wife.
Okay. The mom.
No, you're not the mom.
Okay.
How can male karateka change his practices on the dojo floor to be more respectful to female karateka training partners? We talked about how some males go too far and are afraid to train with them, and some males, they take it as an opportunity to beat you up. So what's the fine line? Where's that road that we could walk down as male karateka training with females? Because obviously that's going to be something we have to deal with, right? What would be the best approach? And maybe give me one suggestion each. So, Amy, go.
Put my shoulder in front of them. End of story.
Yeah, that's crazy because that sounds so old school. It's unreal.
Well, I got that
baggage. Plenty of dojos that been like that.
I've got that baggage. I just admit to it.
Yes. If it works, though, let's be real. If it works.
At my dojo, it does. So I don't know about outside the dojo, but at my dojo.
Absolutely. I remember experiences.
So I would say precision of your techniques. We can train hard with men as long as everybody has great control.
Okay.
And my feeling is nobody works on that enough. My kids can place their punches exactly. I have punching the wall. I say, oh, no, you cannot pull your punch. You have to have a full-on punch. And, they crack their knuckles once in a while, but we really have to learn the precision. And I would say that just shoots your karate up too.
Yeah, that's a great improvement. I agree with you there. That's awesome.
But you're meaning in reference to like how guys can change how they're interacting with
No,
females.
well, I think that's exactly what I'm looking for. It's like in the training,
the precision, if they're precise, they're not going to hit me up here. And if I'm precise, I'm not going to kick them in there.
Right?
So that's what I'm saying is like, that's how it's easy to we can all play together if we have the same criteria.
Yeah, but, I agree with you. Totally.
That guy, that's tough to deal with.
Yeah. That's I'm kind of weird when I go to seminars and stuff. I train like, if I have a big brute in front of me, I expect to be like muscled and beat on. So I just go ahead and decide to beat up and kind of go that route. But normally with Lauren, I'm trying to be as precise and as quick as possible, because if I don't, I'll miss her. I love that aspect about training. Is like you're able to go and meet the partner and be able to do that stuff, but do it with confidence, though, knowing that you're not going to endanger anybody. And it goes back to what Amy was saying, and that's that precision. And as karateka and as teachers, that should be number one priority, no matter what. Before they even get anywhere close to brown belt, is precision. Mm-hmm. Precision. I think the last ingredient into basic karate is the power ingredient.
Afterwards.
Because if you don't have the proper coordination, structure, alignment, and just simple control, your karate's going to fall apart the moment you try to make it strong. Yeah. It's that simple. So
which goes directly in the face of the social norms and stuff we talked about earlier, and guys' egos and all that stuff. So definitely a different approach.
Yeah, well, we need to get rid of that anyways. That hinders karate more than anything else. Could you imagine if we put all that effort that everybody puts into their egos and boosting themselves and actually researched their own art and made their craft better, where we would be standing? We'd be in a sea of Steve Ubels. Yeah. Let's be real. We would be in a sea of them, and that's what would be normal.
Yeah.
Right? But no, everybody's concerned. I'm sorry, let me get off my soapbox. So Laura, what would you say would be the best thing for a male karateka to do when he's training with you that would make it, feasible, I guess, and legit?
Yeah, my feeling, my idea is very similar to what you were just talking about with Amy, and to some degree what Riva said is like put your best example of what you want your student to be like in front and have other people emulate it. But, some of my influences deal with playing sport. So like women's sport, so it's not combative necessarily, but like when you have a bunch of women who are trying to make a team to achieve something better, there's no like, you have to be better than the men's. You just try to be your best person, your best self, your best athlete. And I think if teachers of any gender were to focus on this and that development process a little bit more, so like what you were talking about relative to precision, well, how do you get that? If you start small and a little bit weak, how do you get stronger? Like focus on the fundamentals of strength building and coordination, neuromuscular control. How do you get that? It doesn't matter if you're male or female. You can have some guys that come in who have not very good coordination. You can have some female students come in who have an extreme amount of coordination but lack the strength. Everyone's at a different level. So if you take gender out of it and just focus on the fundamentals of biomechanics, then I think most women just want to be good at what they're doing. They want to be taken seriously and given the tools, the necessary tools and knowledge to get there, and not have all the other bullshit. Sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, whatever. I've already broken that rule, so we're good.
Because it interferes mentally when you have to think about, oh, am I allowed to be strong? Am I allowed to be fast? Will people make fun of me for being strong? That's an inhibitor to accumulating and getting skills for a lot of females who think that they have to be passive because they're just used to being subjugated like their whole life. So you have to get that mentality out of people's heads before they can accept that being strong and being fast and, these other goals that karate teaches.
So I like to toot our horn a little bit. One of the most favorite things about our students is that they challenge people when they teach them. When someone's teaching them, they go, well, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. Right? And these guys are brown belts and green belts, and they're saying it to 6th and 7th dons. But they're not saying it in such a way that's challenging. They're saying it just doesn't make sense
Like
to me.
disrespectful.
It's not being disrespectful.
Yeah.
They're being honest and
and
curious, right? And I think that approach has made our dojo kind of more even keeled, in a sense that we're always looking at what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And we understand that what works for me doesn't work for Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful aspect that we have a contrast of power and strength compared to precision and speed, because some things, what I teach, Lauren look at me and go, that doesn't work with me. And that's legit. And I'm okay with that, because that's what we need to hear. Right.
Yeah.
That's what's changed. Because a lot of times I would, in my mind, this will not work for me, my size, blah, blah, blah. And I agree. That's changed since I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're fortunate nowadays to have the YouTubes and all this other craziness, to where we can just be flooded with all this information, and everybody has a discerning eye. Everybody knows what looks good and what doesn't. They might not know why it looks good, right? But that looks good, right? So I think that part of our, I guess, culture has led us to be fortunate enough to be open about how we teach and not expect people to understand. No, just do ta-ta or bomb this way, and they kind of just shake around, and it's kind of craziness, right?
They actually have to explain themselves.
And now they have to literally explain the biomechanical process that they're going through.
To a point, yeah.
To a point. I mean, some guys get it wrong, some guys get it right. I'm the wrong guy. He's the right person, But that, to me, is as I look at the situation, as I look as karate culture integrating together as female and male, not just like one group here and this group there, I believe that approach is what's going to make it easiest for all of us to get better overall, no matter where you stand.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there's accountability there, and even kind of going back to some points earlier, it's like, it's okay.
Sorry.
So like for me, my thought is like, if you as a guy are wanting to be more respectful to females, the only thing that I would ask is just listen. Just listen to what we're saying, or if we're working together, then take our perspective into account too. If we're at a seminar and we're working together and we have different perspectives on what it was the instructor wants us to do, then you both listen and you try both. Right. You don't feel like you have to always be the one talking. You made reference to our Q ranks, like kind of pushing the black belts and being like, hey, I don't get this. Like, let's try this, or I don't understand what you're getting at, or I don't really think that works. They are being respectful, but we have a culture. We're trying to build a culture where everyone's willing to listen and they're able to converse openly so they can come to a conclusion. That's not to say that the Q rank necessarily knows what the heck he's talking about, but the Don rank is willing to listen. And we need that male and female too, where, we're willing to just shut up and listen. All
right, let's be honest. We're just creating a dojo full of jerks and assholes.
No, we're not.
And we're just trying to be smart asses, because that's what we do.
We are smart, Alex, a little bit.
Dojo culture is represented through the teachers.
Yes. So they're just mouth off all the time.
Yeah, pop off and whatever.
Can I just say one thing that's changed too? And I think it's because, Ugo Sensei is so amazing, right? So many times when you're off the floor and in a social setting, a lot of the sensei still want to be called sensei.
Yeah.
And that has definitely changed. And I think maybe he's part of that.
Yeah.
Where he's just call me Steve. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because, so many times I think people get inflated with the ranks and their head goes like this, and pretty soon they're floating out there like that. And they expect that that's real life. Well, no, that's just an hour a day on the dojo floor. So I want to give him kudos for that, because I think he's changed that culture, which is awesome.
I think in my own personal teaching approach, I've taken that for what Steve is, on being completely honest and humble in your approach. So when I screw something up, I'm like, guys, I'm sorry. I screwed it up. Let's start with something else. This is not going where I want it to go. And, I don't know how many classes I've done that where I'm just like in the middle of it go, yeah, I'm an idiot. Let's go somewhere else. So I love that, because it's starting to show fruit now. Our dojo is having these people that are critical thinkers, that are developing the mental side of karate, not only the physical side, but the mental side.
Yeah.
And they're well-rounded. They're not like, I grew up in a time where sport karate and was the biggest thing and the only thing. You couldn't find a dojo that would focus on something else.
Yeah.
You know, and it just created horrible people.
Yeah.
Let's be real. I mean, a lot of the competitors lost themselves and their achievements and not their person, you know? I'm the third three-time world champion. Well, besides that,
the world champion of your town.
Well, you know, what
Yeah,
have you done?
three
What's
countries.
interesting, you know? Anyways.
Well, can I just say something a little bit along those lines? I think is a challenge for female instructors who are trying to overcome this sexist culture is sometimes there's overcompensation for it. And I think that humility that you're talking about resonates with everyone. And so, like, I think our goal as female karateka is, like, can we just get rid of the sexism, overcome it, and just be our natural selves without having to feel like we have to overcompensate for all this bad stuff.
Right. I want to quote Morgan Freeman. He was being interviewed when, like, I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s. And he goes, well, how do you get rid of racism? He goes, we stop talking about it. We stop making it a bigger deal than what it is, and we move on. And I think I agree with Laura in the sense in karate, we need to do the same thing. And that's kind of what our goal is today, is to kind of find these, like, subtle guidelines that some men that are unsure can follow and go, okay, with confidence, this is what I could do. And then understand it's individual too, you know? Mm-hmm. So I like that. I'm having fun. I don't know about y'all. I will say this too, though.
People off.
Oh, heck yeah. It's my party, and I'll cry if I want to. What I'll say too is it sounds like I'm a very soft and you know, maybe even considered a very soft approach teacher, and I'm not. I'm a super alpha male on the floor. I'm a very strict and very demanding teacher, but I demand the same thing from all my students. I don't. If they get singled out, it's because they're horrible kids. And I get tired of them not bending. You're awful. You know what I mean? Like, it's certain things that they'll get called out for because it's a laziness thing. It's not an ability thing or a strength thing. It's like you're being lazy. You're not bending your knee. Mm-hmm.
So have you experienced any of your, like, younger female students that you feel you've been able to develop a very good level of confidence in their karate, who've, like, maybe been bullied or been made fun of outside the dojo that you had to, like, has anything like that ever happened?
We've had bullying issues, but it's usually with boys being bullied. And a lot of times that's why their parents bring them. The closest thing to that we've gotten out of female students that I can recall is usually more like a self-defense thing. Like, they had a situation happen and they needed to learn some self-defense, so they came to the dojo. I don't really recall any bullying or any situations with females. But I will say, you know, that we've seen with our students that the more that you train, the more confident you get. So sometimes you're able to just avoid the situation altogether, right, as opposed to actually having to use karate, you know, for your safety.
That's a very real thing, you guys, because a lot of women, I come in and, because I've been training for a long time, purple belt, it's called the purple belt divorce. They're starting to get confidence and boom, they get divorced because they're tired of being bullied by their husbands, and they move on and they're happy. Yeah.
I took that as something else. I thought you meant divorce from karate. I'm like, they left?
No, I've seen that. I've seen where females would get to a certain point and all of a sudden their life changes.
Wow.
Like they've got this confidence where, like, you know what, I don't need this crap. And they make some big changes. I've seen it and been like, whoa, I wish I was that brave.
Yeah.
Well, you know, trying to get rid of you is different though.
Okay, so how can male karate students be more respectful to female karate teachers?
I don't know. That's the question.
Well, I kept trying to make you ask the question, and you haven't asked it yet. So
how would you answer that question?
Well, I've never had I've never had a different experience with male or female students. I mean, they've pretty much been equally disrespectful little brats, so it's fine.
Yes. And for all the students that are listening to us, trust us, we still love you. We just like to talk badly about you.
Yes. Do y'all have any suggestions with that? Or have you experienced male students being disrespectful, and is there any? Are you having?
Not anymore. It's my own dojo.
He was like, "No, I got the pit bull right there."
Not anymore. So not me.
Amy?
I mean, we get a new student that comes in from some other style, or he wants to be all macho and whatever, and they just don't stay. They just they try and they leave.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Laura, same thing.
The question was about disrespectful students.
Yeah.
Yeah, being disrespectful to you as an instructor.
Well, I have experience what Amy talked about, not because I was the instructor, but just men speaking over other female instructors. And I would just say, like, chances are you have something to learn from this person, and if you're paying money, like, why not just try to get the most out of it and just zip it? Just listen.
Well, it's not only a female thing that men will talk over instructors. I've been talked over many a times, and I'll just shut up and stare at them.
Really awkward.
Yeah, just stare at them like, until they're done, and then they're like, "Oh, everybody's looking at me." I'm like, "Are you done? Cool, let's move on." and generally they don't do it again, but
yeah.
I also think that there's different ways to interpret what disrespect means, and so I'm kind of a hard nose like this, like. So it doesn't always mean talking. Sometimes it just means not paying attention and not catching the drill. And then when you go to partner with them, they don't know what the beep they're doing.
Right.
I find that like such a waste of my time, because I'm like watching, then I have to reteach it or try to teach by being the uke. Yeah. And I find that to be really irritating. But I don't know that that has to do with gender per se, is just an attention level thing, but
I would venture to say it's more of an ageist thing, because generally the older dudes tend to do that all the time. Let's be real, the guys from the early 70s, 80s, they don't even pay attention to the drill. Next thing you know, they're trying to tell you something completely different.
They got dementia.
It's like, no, he said a jab, not a reverse punch, man. A jab, other hand.
We're so messed up. We gotta stop making fun of people.
Yeah, dude, we share too many experiences that we had.
We love it.
So for us, it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, we talked about this person, but never talk about them.
Never say their name, you mean?
Yeah, we're rude. We're assholes.
Okay.
Like the teacher is trying to teach something that's really subtle or highly technical, and it really requires like understanding how to subtly move your body, not big movement, but like small movement. And if it's a partner drill, like it has to do with how you're both connecting, like the nature of the touch, and it just flies over the head of so many people, but so many people just don't pay attention enough. So personally, I find that borderline disrespectful when you know that they're capable of doing it and they're just not there. So that kind of bothers me more than when people are kind of chatting to either clarify whatever reason that they're talking. I don't know, but just not being present. Really.
I'm a talker. So when we get like partner work, I'm a talker. You'll hear me across the room scream and laugh and all kinds of stuff, but you'll never see me just stand around. I usually do the drill until the point where I'm like, okay, I'm either too dizzy to do it anymore. I'm like, or everybody else is standing around.
Class clown.
Yeah, well, whatever. I have a good time. I'm doing karate because I love it and I want to have a good time, you know? And if I'm training with someone that I don't get to train with all the time and it's a fun thing, you should be able to laugh. I mean,
I know, as long as you're trying.
I've also had some female instructors who teach without talking.
Oh.
whoa.
That's interesting.
To demonstrate what they're doing, they expect you to watch.
That's a very Aikido thing, yeah?
Yeah, this was a little bit some Aikido in it. And she was like closing her eyes even, so it was like you really had to pay attention to what was happening to be able to repeat it. And so afterwards, people were like, do we ask questions? Do we not ask questions?
What's going on?
And how do you ask the question? So when you were doing this thingy, I know I'm not doing it right, but what were you doing there?
Whatever this was.
What happens is you say, could you do that to me?
Oh.
No, that's
Old school or new school?
Could you do it to me? And the instructor's like, yes, I can.
Tactile learning is the best, yeah. Oops, sorry.
That's interesting training, actually. Oops. That without talking is really interesting, because I was at a Toro Shimoji seminar and we had to teach a purple belt an advanced kata without words, I'm telling you guys, they learned faster.
Really?
They actually learned faster.
Would you use that in your curriculum, your teaching curriculum for your everyday?
I have sometimes, but it's really hard with the kids because they're just
Yeah.
depending on who's in that class.
Yeah. That's a good point. So I guess the last question is, who was a female karateka that you looked up to as you were growing up in karate, and who's a female karateka you look up to now, currently?
I didn't have anybody.
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
No.
Do you have anybody now, Reba?
Not really.
Ooh. Hardly.
No.
A little swallow right there, boy. Yikes.
Just because I've seen YouTube, it doesn't mean they're ones I want to look up to. I need to know them. Unfortunately, not too many female instructors in seminars, and that's an issue too. Yeah. They usually have youngsters, and that's just not right, but I'm not going to go there because that's not what the topic is about. But I look at two of my I've got more, but two of my female students, I can see them being looked up to in a few years, assuming they stick with it and take it and continue to take it seriously as they are now. One's 17 and one is 10. I can see them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, there isn't anybody. I'm sure there is, don't get me wrong.
Hey, if it's not for you, it's not for you.
I haven't had the experience of being in a class with them.
Yeah. How about you, Amy?
Well, when I was going through the ranks, we had some strong women here. We had Nina Chenault, and I think she was one of the first fifth dans women here in our system. I never really trained with her that much, but I had a woman who was just I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ahead of me in my training, or maybe a little bit more, but her name was Laura Ocampo. She's Miguel Ocampo's wife, but she was Laura Summers back in that day. But she was small and she was strong and she was a former gymnast. So I would love watching her. And I remember trying to figure out, I would take an image of her body and put my head on it and see what it would feel like.
Oh, man, I've totally done that before. Totally.
And then currently, actually, I'm not kissing butt or anything, but I want to say to your wife, because she's taking it so seriously, you've got your body knowledge and you're coupling it with all this great tradition stuff. And I really think that you're really awesome, because you are like the first young woman who's doing this in a real methodical way, yet still having fun. It's awesome. And so I don't mean to, but I'm not out there that much either. I'm not saying that, but I don't, it's not my thing anymore to go to seminars. But what I see you doing is amazing.
Thanks, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
I totally second that. And even though we haven't trained together sorry, Jeremiah.
You're not a lady. Yeah,
Ladies, you know what trouble you are causing me? You know what a headache I'm having to
feel better. I haven't seen her teach, so I don't know.
You ain't missing much.
Oh, whatever.
No, she's an awesome teacher. I love her. Love to be
I'm sure she is.
I'm always amazed by her movement. I really am. I've always.
I just think older women should be shown, just like older men are doing seminars, so should older women.
Well, Houghton let me teach.
Anyhow, what did you say? I didn't hear you.
I said Rick Houghton had me teach once.
I wasn't there for that. I heard, but I wasn't there. Anyhow.
Well, I also haven't gotten much opportunity to train with Amy, but just the little bit that we were able to work on before, you can kind of get a sense of someone, not just in their physical capabilities, but in the way that they're able to communicate ideas and how they're able to put their training in perspective. And so in that regard, Amy, you are one of the top of the top. And I think you don't give yourself enough credit. So we have to push you out there on stage one day.
Very sweet. I'm turning red.
And And Reva, I haven't gotten to train with you, but I know you're a total badass, and that.
Aw.
And I just want to say, I had an earlier experience with someone who did Ocampo,
Okay.
so not
That's why.
Shotokan,
Yeah.
judo or jujitsu, like Wally J jujitsu and Aikido, and she was like this complete package. Her name is Carol Harris. She was probably 60 when I met her, and she was teaching classes, but she might as well have been 30. And she was an exacting teacher in what she did, and every single person in the room respected her immensely. Most of my experience with her had to do with jujitsu and aikido, and she was teeny tiny. I think she was like maybe 5'3", 140 pounds, but when she, especially this little joint right here, which you inflict a lot of pain, like for chokes and whatnot, no mercy whatsoever. She just used her body for leverage in all the right ways, and showed me that you could be a small person and still inflict a great deal of pain. And in fact, sometimes being smaller actually helps.
Yeah, better angles.
Because you can get into like sensitive areas behind joints or the neck where, like, if you have a big giant arm, it kind of impedes you. So I learned a whole lot from her, but just the fact that she carried herself in a certain way and regarded herself with confidence and demanded people respect her just the way that she was. She was very influential in how I thought about what was possible for women, and also just her technique. So I owe a lot of my confidence into training with her.
It's amazing how women don't realize, like, whenever they're able to push through, and even though it gets difficult to keep training, you don't realize who's coming behind you.
Yeah,
when I was a little girl, when I first started karate, there was a girl, she was actually a teenager, her name was Brittany, and she got up to like brown belt level. But whenever I was young, that was the person that I looked up to, because like she was tall, she's beautiful, but she was really strong, and she gave the guys a run for her money. And I was like, I want to be like her. I want to be able to be confident in myself enough to be able to throw my weight around a little bit and not be worried about getting hurt. So encouragement to all of you and anybody else listening that, even if you don't feel like anyone is watching and admiring, I think that, you put enough time in, people are coming up behind you and they see the example that you set.
Yeah. So for me, I'm sorry.
You have a lady that you look up to?
Dude, I was a fanboy. Like when I was a kid, Yahara was like my guy. I loved watching him. Mm-hmm. And Yuko, obviously, because she was from our dojo, anytime we could see anything on her, I was about it, And then now, no disrespect to you, because I admire your karate and everything else, but if you guys know Becky Flynn.
Yeah.
That woman to me is the epitome of a karate warrior. She is always out. She's always training. And when she's training, she ain't half-assing it. She's going at it.
She will hurt you, too.
Right? And I love that about her. I love her attitude. So, right.
I want her height.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I want it to be her. She's tall.
Yeah. And she's just a beast about things. And I like that about her and the tenacity towards her training. So that's who I like, is a female karateka. So there you go.
Anything else to add?
No, ladies, thank you so much and for putting up with me and my randomness and losing thoughts in the middle of speaking. That is just who I am. And,
we love you the way that you are.
Yes, we do.
But hopefully this discussion has shed some light on any karateka in that sense, because I think we touched base on both sides. We're encouraging young women to stand up, do what they think is right, and we're also telling young boys to be gentle.
Yeah.
In the right way, not the condescending way.
Right.
I just also wanted to give a plug for the Dad Girl movement, because I think that there's been a lot of positivity about ways of raising young women to be strong and powerful that has some momentum right now. And I don't know if you experienced that with, parents in your own dojo, but I love that about Kobe Bryant using that. And I think it's had a lot of positive impact.
Yeah. Dude, our parents around here are some country folk, man. They raise girls and boys the same.
Kind of.
They do not differentiate. They will beat them the same. So it's
not abuse.
the women in this county, and I lived in Gainesville, Florida for the majority of the time I've been here. And that's a very liberal county. It's full of college students. Although it has rural agriculture, it's not a rural county. I moved to Sumter County, which is one of the most rural counties in Florida. It's one of the poorest counties in Florida. And these people here, man, they got the best heart in the world. You just don't know. And I think it's the rural and farmer attitude that's going to kind of change our situation socially. You know, I think it's the whole, I take responsibility for what I do and I treat people the way I want to be treated.
What a concept, yeah.
Well, I mean, right? But that's besides the point. I just want to say thank you guys so much. And
Thank
Anything
you.
else you wanted to add?
yeah. Anything you want to add? I know I talked longer than Lauren. It's been like almost 2 hours. Right?
No, it hasn't.
Oh, it's an hour, 15 minutes.
Thank you, ladies, so much for doing this. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hopefully.
Thank you. Bye.
Come back.